No, but he's actually serious.
Stop making so much noise. We're live. You want to say something? All right. Well, it's not live, but
It is live. There's like 100,000 people tuning in. So, can she hear us?
yeah, it's live. I don't use headphones.
Okay, cool.
You don't use the headphones?
No, I don't know why you guys use headphones. Does it make it better?
Dude, all podcasters use headphones, man. It's just kind of like a thing.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
I'm
supposed to
kinda
make
like
the
a-
sound better.
I'm like an unconventional guy, so maybe I'm an unconventional podcaster.
That sounds about right. We do have like over 3,000 listens at this point
Nice. Sweet.
in 5 episodes.
Maybe I should say this at the beginning of the episode instead of the end of the episode. If you're one of those 3,000 people listening and you have a question for us, you can send it to @ScottMcGill Jr. on Instagram, and we will answer it at the end of the episode.
Yeah, maybe we'll get more now that you said it at the beginning, because people stop listening.
Yeah,
Although-
the amount of people listening to the whole thing is probably real low. But
If I'm listening to a podcast and I turn usually I'm like riding or driving or something, like I never
Right.
stop listening.
you always listen to the whole thing, even if you're bored by whatever they're talking about.
Especially if I'm riding, because I gotta like take my phone out of my pocket.
Okay. I mean, I'll stop listening to a podcast all the time if I just get bored by what they're talking about.
It sucks. Oh.
I usually
I'll
stop
listen to the
at,
whole thing if the whole thing is interesting.
yeah, I usually stop at like a little bit early because it frustrates me when it goes to the like automatically goes to the next podcast and I didn't choose that podcast. I don't like the random podcast selector thing.
See, I queue them up before I go in the order that I want to listen to them. I just go.
Yeah, I don't got
Nice.
time for that.
Well, you would save time in the end, actually.
Probably. So Scott, you said you are homesteading. Are you in like a different location, or is it like in your hometown?
No, it's like right down the street from my house.
Okay,
We're just staying at a different house.
that's sweet.
Nice.
We got dogs and chickens. And...
You got to feed
Yeah.
the chickens.
Yeah.
That's cool. You try and catch them or anything?
No, you just let them out and then like put them back. Make sure you put them back in at night so they don't get eaten.
Cool. What kind of dogs?
All
they
right.
got?
Well,
They go to the lab, and then the other dog is actually one of the offspring of my dogs, which
Wow.
is like half. What would she be? English Springer and Brittany mix.
Cool.
nice.
So she's family.
All right. Let's start talking about bike racing. Scott, you want to start with talking about the UCI race that was in Banner Elk this weekend?
Sure. Yeah, there was a UCI race in Banner Elk, North Carolina.
So was this
mountain bike
was? I'll be honest. I'm not really following U.S. pro mountain bike racing anymore.
Clearly.
I probably should. This was a pro XCT?
I guess that's what they call it.
Yeah.
Again,
It's
I
a
don't-
brand new one this year.
Yeah, it was new. Yeah, it was on the. I mean, you've done the Leeds McRae course, Dylan, right?
Yeah. No, it's
it was-
super technical
Yeah,
from
It
what
was-
I remember. Yeah.
and it was an extra lap too. It was 4 laps.
Okay. I forget how long a lap takes.
It like my time was I was third. My time was like an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So that is long, yeah.
It's pretty long.
Did we used to do 3 laps back in college?
Yeah, we did 3 laps.
Yeah. So Scott and I went to college at Brevard College in North Carolina, and so we raced Lees McRae, which is in Banner Elk, North Carolina, quite frequently, and their home course was what they used for this race. So it's like right there on campus. It's actually an extremely technical course. It's very steep and it's very rocky from what I remember. I mean, Scott just did it, so you can probably, his memory is more fresh than mine, but
Yeah, and it was like my third ride on a mountain bike in like 6 months. And like I was riding my bike fine. Like I was like like I was like riding with Kerry the whole time, and he never like dropped me on a descent or anything like that. But then by the end of the race, my arms and like my feet were so like fucked from riding, just like fatigued. Like my arms, like I almost like fell off my bike, just like like I couldn't hold my handlebars anymore.
Yeah, that's pretty embarrassing. So an hour 45 minutes and your arms can't handle like mountain biking anymore.
But yeah, mountain biking's hard.
Yeah. Dude, honestly, it's very impressive, man, how you maintain your technical skills having like in college, like you'd be riding your road bike all the time, and then we'd go for a mountain bike ride, and you had like the shittiest mountain bike, and you would just rail it down every descent. I don't know, like I don't know if you're a good bike handler or if you just have like no fear. I can't decide what it is, because it didn't really look like you were in control, but
no
you were going fast, is what I'm saying. You were going fast.
Yeah, I did do like the whole mountain bike race without making like a significant mistake, which was good. I crashed in the pre-ride.
Okay.
Like bent my bumpers and my saddle and everything.
Yeah.
In Kerry's, he went to Lees McRae, didn't he?
Yeah, he went to Lees McRae.
Yeah, because I saw that he had put on like one of their collegiate jerseys for the race. So that's even more impressive. Like he knew that course probably better than anyone.
I mean, I guess, but we've all done it. Like Carson, who won, Carson Beckett, who we always make fun of.
Yeah, Carson's the one that gave me COVID. Went to his wedding, and Carson claims that I didn't get COVID from his wedding, but I don't. It had to be his wedding. I mean, I don't really hang out with that many people, so.
Dude, it was that Alley Cat race.
There's no way, man. It was definitely Carson's wedding.
So Carson won. So his finish time was 1 hour and 39 minutes.
Yeah, he won by like 5 minutes.
No, dude, only 3 minutes. Kerry was 1:42, and Scott, you were 1:42 and a half.
Oh, nice. All right. Yeah, Carson led from the start and he had a gap from the beginning, which made it so like I don't know why he doesn't like ride with us for a little bit and then drop us. He's got to do it right off.
He's not a roadie, man. He's got that mountain biker mentality. He just rides at his own pace for the whole time. He really, I feel like he doesn't really understand road tactics, and it's evident when we do like a gravel race. And he also doesn't understand aerodynamics either. This is the guy that I talk about who's always got his like jersey unzipped and it's just flapping in the wind like Superman style, probably costing him 30 watts, 40 watts.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time talking shit about him when he just won by like 3.5 minutes.
I know. We should actually, you know what? We should actually have him on the podcast. We should have had him on the podcast for this episode.
Yeah, we should have.
Oh, well. But yeah, I don't know.
So Scott, are you going to put a bid in for the World Cup in West Virginia?
Yeah, I think I'm in.
You are?
Nice.
Yeah, and then I was going to go to so I think I'm going to go to this race in Canada this weekend, which is a C2, like a Canada Cup or something. They've got a cross country and a short track. And then I was going to go to nationals, but now I just might not go to nationals. Not waste my money, and like I can actually train properly at home.
Yeah. I mean, nationals will be an altitude race, and you're not acclimated, so
yeah. So,
yeah, dude, Scott, I feel like you are the most underrated cyclist in the U.S.
Why do you say that?
You're just
like
you're
no
good
one
at,
knows who you are.
You're good at all the disciplines, yeah, and like I think it's partly because you're like super humble and you just love racing your bike. You don't really care about any of the other extra fluff stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like you don't get the recognition that you deserve.
Right.
But you don't care. See, like right now, you're just like, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to go to Canada anyways and race my bike.
Right. I mean, in 2022, half of being a professional bike racer, if you're at the domestic level, is actually riding a bike fast, and then the other half is like your social media, right? So Scott has one of those two criteria, and that's actually riding the bike fast. And then if you look at his Instagram, it's like, I don't know, the cap. I mean, I actually love Scott's captions, but like, they don't really like pull a lot of emotion out of his audience. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know where these people find the time to like write these like captions about a photo. It's like one. Like, isn't a photo
instead of queuing up your podcast, man? You can just write an Instagram caption.
Sure.
Nah, I don't know.
Let's talk about the women's race at the UCI race. Emily Werner won, so Carrie Werner's wife beat him. Carrie was second.
She went to Lise McRae too, right?
Yeah, she went there.
Yeah.
I'm glad we were not racing. As soon as we finished, then the women started, and it started dumping rain. It looked horrible.
Oh, wow.
Like, I was cold. You don't expect to be cold in July, right? I was freezing my ass off.
Really?
I like went and sat in Ricky's truck for.
You were freezing while you were racing?
No, after I was done, we were all standing there. You know, everyone.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Each other and shit like that, and then it started dumping, and the women went off. And it rained. Wow. It rained the night before, so like all the routes were pretty slick on the course, but there was no like mud.
I feel like I never raced that course when it was dry. Every time I raced it in college, it either had rained the day before or it was currently raining while we were racing.
Like if you go through the rock garden, even we were pre-riding, it was dry. Like it hadn't rained in however long. The rest of the course is like dusty, and the rocks are like all slippery still. Like it's never. There's always some like wetness on that course.
Like humidity or what?
I don't know. Maybe in that rock garden, there's like a spring or something. I don't know. It's always wet.
All kinds of shit in that rock garden.
They like deviated us from the rock garden though, like the main one.
Wait, why?
Because I think there was too many.
People were going to get hurt.
Yeah, there's too many injuries.
Yeah, I mean this rock garden, like they use it for the XC race, but they also used to use it for the downhill race in collegiate. And I mean, guys were using full on downhill bikes for the downhill race, just to give you an idea of what what this rock garden's like.
We rode it.
What mountain bike were you on? Do you own a mountain bike?
Yeah, I have a mountain bike.
Okay.
Is
it full suspension? Are you
going to tell us anything more about it, or
mountain bike?
Yeah. Okay. Are you not allowed to tell us about it because it wasn't sponsor approved or something?
It's just a mountain bike. I don't know.
That's cool. It's got some boingy bits and
right. Did you wax your chain? Tires? Did you like put extra like what do you do with the rebound on your suspension?
I didn't touch that. I also like a week ago. And my gauge only goes to like 100, and you pump the shock like way more than that. So I just like aired it up a little bit and just left it.
Nice.
I did like use a tire pressure gauge.
What kind of pressure were you running?
I ran 20 and 20.5.
Okay,
all
right.
What size tires?
2.35 Ardent Race or something.
And you had tire inserts?
And I had tire inserts. It was kind of high, but like I just didn't want to like break something.
Sure, I would have probably run a little bit less with the tire inserts.
Yeah,
but...
I would have. I never felt like I could have kept going lower, but I don't know,
dude. So we have a group chat with some of our buddies from college, and Scott was like, first of all, if there's any course that you're ever going to run tire inserts at, it's this course. Like, I mean, there's so many rocks, there's so many things to bottom your tire out on. Like, you want tire inserts. And our friend Zach Loudon was like, Scott was like, should I put tire inserts in? And I'm like, is this even a question? Like, obviously, yes. And our friend Zach Loudon's like, oh, dude, just pump the tires up a little more. You'll be fine.
I don't know. I picked the insert up when I was putting it. It is a bitch to get in, but like, whatever.
What'd you use? Cushcore?
No, I use Tannis or something. Tannis tire
Oh
insert?
my gosh!
What is that like?
Tannis?
Is that like a random Amazon brand or something?
It
So
was the lightest and cheapest one I could find.
okay, so did you use the one that's like the insert that sits in the rim?
No, I don't think so.
Did you use the one that's like on the outside that you have to use with a tube?
No, it's the tubeless.
Okay,
one.
okay, cool. So
Why would I use it?
look, I'm just I don't want to bash a company too hard here, but
You
like,
do that all the time.
all right. So when I got a bunch of flat, I need to say this about Tannis because like they're honestly doing like false advertising right now. So when I got a bunch of flats last year at Unbound, I was like, I need to find a solution that I will not get flats, and then I'll do really well at Unbound because I'll be one of the few people that didn't flat. And I found these Tannis inserts that like go around the inside of the tire, and then you have to use a tube with them. But basically, you can't puncture your tire because there's like a half inch of foam around the inside of your tire. So even if you puncture your tire, it's like you're fine.
So you put a
And I was
tube,
like,
then you
that-
put the insert on, and then you put your tire on?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
The insert
So I-
goes in between the tube and the tire, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And you have to run a tube because you can't do it tubeless because then the air leaks out because there's foam anyway. So I was like, dude, that is perfect for Unbound because you can cut your tire and keep going. Like it doesn't matter that you cut your tire. So I tried those things out, and I've got a little section of gravel that I'll like test different tires and tire setups on to see what the difference in rolling resistance is. Now, Tannis claims that these inserts improve the rolling resistance. So, like, make you roll faster. Okay. I think this was like a 2-minute segment without the inserts was like, I don't know. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was like 2 minutes and 15 seconds. With the inserts in, it was like 2 minutes and 35 seconds. It was so much slower. And when I extrapolated it out over the course of a 10-hour race, it was like a full hour slower. And I was like, you could get like 3 flats and still be faster without these inserts.
Was that maybe, were they claiming that relative to just using a tire with tubes?
Dude, there is no possible tire setup that is slower than this. I don't know what they were. I don't know what they were doing that relative to. If they were doing it like relative to a tractor tire, but like, no, like there's no tube setup that would be slower than this, right? You could put a butyl tube in there; it wouldn't be slower. Like the and if you know, like now I know more about hysteresis and like tire rolling resistance, like since I've talked to Josh Portner and done more research on it, and it totally makes sense. Like foam is a very I forget if it's low hysteresis or high hysteresis. I think low hysteresis.
We'll call it anti-hysteresis.
All right. Anyway, but like foam, like it's just sapping a lot of energy out of your tire, right? So
yeah,
it's it makes sense that it would be a lot slower. At the time, I didn't know that, but yeah, I've got a pair of those Tannis inserts in my house because I bought them. I don't know what I'll ever use them for. Maybe if like I'm like bike packing or something.
No, dude. Next year when you go to the Oregon gravel grinder, you can use it as a hula hoop.
Sure.
That's what everyone was doing there, hula hooping.
Sure. Or if there's ever like a gravel race where like half the race is like on nails or something.
Well, I used like the tubeless one, so
Okay. You're good.
just
You're good.
talking about something I didn't use.
Yeah, I kind of went off on a tangent there. Sorry.
Well,
No, you're good. If you use the tubeless one, you're probably fine.
yeah, I mean, I didn't know if it mattered that much. Like you're just sticking a piece of foam in your tire at the end of the day, right? It's not like it. I don't know. But then I did when I was installing them. I looked up a video on how to do it because I'd never done it before. and they're like talking about putting a tube in there, and I'm like, what the hell did I buy? Like, I don't
Yeah, so you looked up the video for the wrong one.
Yeah,
you looked up the video for the one that's like,
but
that I was just talking about.
Yeah, I bought the tubeless one. It seems fine.
Okay.
Although you can like hear it when you ride, like it like.
Dude,
sounds
you needed a video to tell you how to put a piece of foam in your tire.
I didn't know if there was like a trick, tips and tricks or something. I mean, yeah, it didn't really help because one, he was talking about sticking a tube in there, and two, you just shove it in.
Yeah, it's not really that hard, man. Like the foam goes in the tire, and that's
hard.
it. Okay.
It's hard to do.
I use Tubo Light, and I'll be honest, those are really easy to put in. Like, I know that Cush Core is hard. I've never used Tannis, like the tubeless Tannis, but yeah.
I don't know. If I had something else to complain about, I'd probably complain about that over putting this tire insert in, but like, I'll complain about that.
Scott, do you have anything else to add about the race down there? There were pretty small fields. Was the race like in general? Were there a lot of people like in the non UCI categories?
There was like a decent amount of people, not too many. It was like a local. It was basically like a local mountain bike race, except it happened to be UCI.
Okay.
C2.
Do you think they'll do it again next year?
Yeah, the promoter was talking about making it a C1 and adding a short track and stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
That'd be sweet.
That'd be cool,
dude. If I was like not in Colorado right now, I would have thought about doing it, even though XC stuff is not my jam.
Yeah, but it's not my jam either.
Sure.
Yeah, I would have come down if I even knew about it.
Well, that would have been a lot of traveling for you, but
yeah, I guess. Cool. Well, should we move on to some gravel stuff?
Yeah, I guess we got to talk about gravel at least once on this podcast, right?
Yeah.
Do one of these without talking about gravel?
I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
Dylan's not doing another gravel race for a while, so maybe.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Although somehow gravel just always creeps into the conversation, right? Anyway, so this past weekend was the third round of the Lifetime Grand Prix, and it was Crusher and the Tushar, which when I first heard the name Crusher and the Tushar, I thought it was a pretty dumb name. I was like, I don't know, it sounds like childish. Like they're clearly trying to say like, oh, it's this race is like a pain in the ass because it's so hard. But the mountain that we were riding on is Tushar Mountain or Tushar Mountain Range or something like that. So I guess it makes sense, right? Crusher and the Tushar. But yeah, I mean, the race is only 69 miles and it's probably the hardest 69 miles of gravel ride. Not the hardest 69 miles I've ever done, because there's some mountain bike races that are not that long that are really challenging, but it's probably the 69 hardest gravel miles I've ever done. It was just like an hour climb to start with, and then you do a really rough descent with a ton of washboards, and it's just so bumpy, and your hands are like destroyed by the time you get to the bottom. And then you do a short little loop at the bottom on the road, and then you've got like an hour and a half climb to get back up, and then it's like a summit finish.
Dude,
and
so your hands were ready to fall off after an hour and a half, dude. That's embarrassing.
You just make fun of me for that?
No, dude, it was different, man. You're on a rigid gravel bike. Yeah, no, not even so like, I mean, we were climbing for an hour, and then this descent is probably, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes. So my hands were ready to fall off after 5 to 10 minutes is what I'm saying. Yeah, and the race starts at like, I don't know, 6,000 feet or something, and ends at 10,000 feet. So it's definitely a high altitude race. And yeah, man, it was brutal. I'll be honest, I wasn't really ready for it. Like I just recently got COVID at Carson's wedding. The same Carson who won the UCI mountain bike race in North Carolina. And I mean, I didn't ride. This is like me making a bunch of excuses right now, right? So, so I didn't ride my bike for 9 days, and have just been getting back into it. I honestly think that was probably worse for me than the fact that it was at altitude and I wasn't acclimated. But I did what I could.
What race did you get?
I got 30th place in the race and 20th out of the Lifetime Riders. So I got some points in the Lifetime Series, but it definitely wasn't great. And I dropped down I was at 13th in the Lifetime Series, and now I'm at 15th. So
yeah, but can't you like drop one at the end of the year?
You can drop one, yeah. And to be honest,
catastrophe in the next two, you can drop this one.
Sure, yeah. To be honest, I thought about not even doing this one, but I was like, if I get a race-ending mechanical at Leadville or whatever, I'm going to be happy that I did this one. So, yeah.
Yeah. So Dylan, you were 31st in 4 hours and 42 minutes. Mm-hmm. And Keegan Swenson won in 4 hours and 2 minutes, and he won by 11.5 minutes.
Yeah, dude, Keegan is he's on a different level. Like it's almost like he's sandbagging doing the Lifetime Grand Prix, which is crazy because like the Lifetime Grand Prix is some of the fastest racers in the U.S. It's like he needs to step it up to something bigger. I know he's been chasing World Cups throughout his career, and sometimes he does well, sometimes he doesn't do well, but I don't know, man. He needs to go after the next bigger and better thing. He is like, it's not going to surprise me at all if he wins every single round of the Lifetime Series. He's just so strong.
He won Leadville last year too.
When is Leadville?
It's in a month. Yeah.
Is it the same time as Snowshoe, or is it?
Well, when's Snowshoe?
The 31st, I think.
Of July.
Of July?
Yeah.
So
it's a couple weeks after that.
Yeah, okay. It's a little bit after that. But yeah, I don't know. Keegan's in a different league right now, man. Of course, this is like perfect race for him. High altitude, lots of climbing, but I mean, even a completely different race like Unbound. Granted, he got second there, but he was the first out of the Lifetime Riders, and
yeah, and he got second in a 4-up sprint. I mean, it's not like he was right there to win it.
For sure. Yeah. Right. Yeah, man. He's in a league of his own. I think there was a little bit of
and I feel like he's really found his own like in these longer races too. So I don't know if maybe that's part of it. Like he was chasing the World Cups for so long, and maybe 90 minutes isn't where he shines. So I don't know. I could see him getting like offers to go do like some classics racing or something like that. I think he's a little bit. I
think he's a little bit small to be a classics racer, especially if we're talking about Flanders or Roubaix. I mean, the dude weighs like 145 pounds.
Yeah, but Pidcock weighs 125 pounds.
Yeah, but dude, Pidcock is like one of the best in the world. Only a dude like that could get away with being that light and actually do well in a classic.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why Keegan couldn't do World Tour Road. I mean, he's beating guys that did World Tour Road by a lot. So
yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of a shakeup in the women's race. I think that Sophia's still leading, but Haley Smith won, and I don't think Sophia had the best race. So like the points are actually super close in the women's race, as opposed to in the men's race. Keegan's just kind of running away with it. I mean, it's not, he's not guaranteed to win, but like he's got a big lead at this point.
Yeah, he has a 15-point lead, which doesn't seem like that much until you like remember that you get a point for every additional placing. So, like he's averaging 15 places ahead of Russell Finsterwald, or I guess he's averaging 5 places ahead of him, but it's the equivalent of 15 places in one race. And I don't see Keegan Swenson getting 16th place in any race anytime soon.
No, I mean, he's for sure the favorite to win Leadville. So,
yeah. Well,
I
don't know. Howard kind of surprised me. He was the only one who stayed with Keegan up the first climb.
Yeah.
Then I think
Howard,
Howard,
sure. I mean, I don't know how much Howard's been training. If Howard Grotz like really steps it up in the next month and really gets in some miles, like maybe he's really gunning for Leadville again. I mean, he could definitely give Keegan a run for his money. I just don't think that he's got the endurance right now because he's probably not been training as much as he used to. But like the old Howard totally would have given Keegan a run for his money on that course. Like that course has Howard written all over it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and Howie won Leadville 3 years in a row, and then last year he was the one who stayed with Keegan the longest up Columbine. So even last year he was, I think he's just so good at on the Leadville course that even when he's not on his best, he can still hang. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, Keegan's also got another month to train. So,
well, I don't see Keegan getting fitter is the thing. I see Howard getting fitter. I don't see Keegan getting fitter. Keegan's probably as fit as he's going to be all season. I could be wrong about that, obviously, but he put in a ton of work for Unbound, and he's been training at a super high level all year versus like Howard. I think he was in grad school or something. And like, now he's got more free time. If anyone's going to get fitter, it's going to be Howard.
For sure. So let's see. Are there any other notable mentions we want to talk about from Crusher? What were some of the, did you like, I don't know, did you talk to any of the other Lifetime folks who, because like there were some guys from the Lifetime series who did not do super well. I'm guessing just high altitude, lots of climbing. Like, did you talk to any of those guys?
I mean, altitude always throws a wrench in things, right? So
yeah,
if you look at a race at sea level, you can't look at those results and say that those results are going to be the same at altitude, because they're not. They're going to be different. Some people respond to altitude really well, and some people don't respond to altitude really well. So yeah, I mean, it's not surprising that the results were kind of all over the place in terms of, some people did unexpectedly bad, and some people maybe did better than you would expect that they would.
Right. Yeah, like Logan Owen, 56 overall. I don't know if something happened. The race coverage, by the way, was terrible. There was no flow bikes. There was no flow bikes coverage. There was no live streaming. There were like a couple Instagram stories. There was like one Instagram story at the bottom of that first descent you were talking about. That's when Keegan and Howie came through. Then there was like another Instagram story at the top of the next climb when you saw Keegan come through. And then like a couple other people came through that one. And then they just posted a photo of Keegan's finish. Like that was it.
Sure.
You saw like literally less than a minute total of the whole race.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard to cover that course, to be honest with you. Then
it shouldn't be part of the Lifetime series.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely an argument. I'll be honest. I thought that I do think that it was a fun race. It was a really challenging race and all of that. But some of the rules that the race promoter has, here's one of them: no public urination on the course. And I was like, what, does this guy just expect racers not to pee for 5 hours?
Well, does that just mean don't pee in front of people watching, or is it you cannot, you cannot exit your body? I don't
know what the specifics are, but one of the rules was public urination is a no-no or something. I was like, I mean, there's no like the whole course is like in the middle of nowhere. Like no one's gonna see you pee. Like if you just stop on the side and pee real quick. And like every single one of these rules, he was also, or the race promoter was also like, you'll be disqualified and you won't be invited back or something. And I was like, dude, this is, and also, I mean, like I was, I remember seeing that rule and I was like, dude, what is Pete Stedna going to do? Pete literally pees like 10 times in the first 2 hours of every gravel race. Like he's just constantly like, I don't know. He's got a small bladder or something, or maybe he's trying to intimidate us. Like this pace is so easy that I can just pee right now. But
do you just piss yourself then if you're not allowed to pee?
Dude, I don't know. I mean, luckily I didn't have to pee during the race, so yeah.
It's like he's promoting dehydration before the race.
Yeah, I don't know. And then the way that they had a start. I mean, I don't need to get too much into it, but just like they had the women start before the men, and I want to preface this by saying that I'm 100% on board with getting women cycling up to the level of men's cycling. I'm 100% on board with equal pay for men and women cyclists. But just logistically, having women start before the men, and then if you go back and look at the way the men started, I mean, they had like the tandem category start before the like men's 30 to 39 or the men's 20 to 29 or something. And they had like the men's 60 plus starting before the 30 to 39. And I was like, dude, this starting list is all screwed up. Like it's completely backwards and out of order. Like where logistically people should be starting based off of how fast they're predicted to go.
Well, so should tandems be the fastest? It's two of them on a bike.
Well, but it's a lot of climbing. On a flat course, you would think so, right? Because it's like double the power on a flat course, but like it's also double the weight if there's climbing.
So Dylan, one question. So you go up the first climb, and then do you turn around and go back down that same climb, or is it a different climb? Because it looked like there was one part of the course that you double back on itself,
sure.
Right?
Yeah, so you start in Beaver and you climb, and then you go over the mountain and you descend, and then you do a little loop at the bottom, and then you go back up that descent that you just did. And then when you get to the top of that descent, you hook a right and you go even higher up. So it's kind of like a lollipop loop, except you're not going all the way back to the start. You're just stopping the race at the top of the mountain.
Okay. Yeah, because I was trying to think through, like, was there any like reasonable reason that they did the start order that way? And that was the only thing I could come up with, was like, if maybe you're trying to get all the categories up to the top of the climb at the similar time, so that way you're not having as many people descending into oncoming traffic. But I don't know.
I mean,
the first climb though seems long enough that it was only a minute or two separation. So
sure. Yeah, I mean, there was plenty of two-way traffic up that second climb. Like, people coming down as people are going up. So yeah, I don't really know. So I'll be honest, like, it didn't really affect the race at all. Like when the men came by the women just kind of, none of the women latched on. Like they just kind of continued doing their own thing.
And it was up a pretty steep climb too. Right?
Yeah. So it was up a steep climb. So, and like none of the women got in the men's way. So it wasn't a big deal. Didn't affect the race, definitely not a big deal. It's just like legit. Like to me, it's not having the start order with the men starting first and then the women starting second. That's not a sexist thing. That's a logistic thing. It's logistics that we don't want people like getting in the way of each other here.
Right.
And you should just like look at the average finishing time of whatever category it is. And, whether it's 60-year-old men or, pro women or single speed or tandem or, masters or whatever, you should just look at what the average speed of that category is and then place those categories accordingly if you're not going to have one giant mass start.
Yeah. So I mean, it seemed like, like it was a little bit of virtue signaling. Like, we want the women to be showcased as like the headlining event. We want them to go off first, give them the spotlight to start the race, which that's cool. I was like, all right, for the first 10, 15 minutes of the live stream, like the women will be in the spotlight and they'll be able to, talk about the women and, give them a lot more, press on the live stream. Then there wasn't even a live stream though. So like, to me, it was like that made no sense then, because there wasn't any media for them to, take advantage of with that reverse start order. So it just didn't make sense. And it sucks for the women because then 20 minutes into their race, they have to be worried about an entire men's group coming through them.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I mean, I'm like, let's be honest, like women's racing has and still takes like a backseat to men's racing. And like I said, I want to see cycling get to a point where the women's race is, just as followed as the men's race. There's just as much prize money. There's just as much prestige, and there's not this difference between the sexes. It's in these gravel races that are mass start. I mean, it is harder for media to follow the women's race, because the men's race, that whoever's leading the men's race is leading the whole race, right? Versus whoever's leading the women's race is, somewhere back. They're not leading the entire race. So it just makes it logistically a little bit harder. So, if, like you said, if that's their way around that they can, showcase the women, I mean, I'm on board with that, but like, then you make a great point. There wasn't even necessarily a live stream. So, I don't know.
Yeah. And they'd have to figure out a way where like all, whatever the lead vehicle for the women's race would have enough gap between them and the back of the men's race. Cause eventually like there's going to be some stragglers from the men's field who are going to fall back. Yeah. But it'd have to be like a 30-minute separation. Like even 5 minutes probably isn't enough. Mm-hmm. And then you could have you could be showcasing two different races going on. And I think that'd be really cool. You could do like split screen and like, here's what's going on in the women's race. Here's what's going on in the men's race, and like really showcase it as two separate races going on. But the way that it's been, taken place so far is it does make it really hard for the women's race, to follow the women's race. And that is a huge bummer for the women.
Yeah, we should. What we need to do is we definitely need to get a pro woman on the podcast. One of the women that are in the Lifetime Grand Prix, and maybe get multiple women that are in the Lifetime Grand Prix and see what their take on this is. I know Sophia was talking about having separated starts for the pro men and pro women at Unbound. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. I can imagine, so at this race, it was like such a climbing race that I don't think it mattered, but I can imagine that if they had done something at Unbound where they had the women start 5 minutes before the men at Unbound, like there would be some women that catch on to the men's field as they pass, and there'd be some women that get screwed and don't catch on. And then it's like, they're completely screwed. Like some women are drafting off of the men, and some women have literally no men to draft off of. Like they're completely on their own.
Right.
So, at a race like Unbound, I could actually see doing this, screwing this up even more for the women.
It'd be worse than the mass start, for sure.
Sure. So, I don't know. We should totally get like one of the women that are in the Lifetime series on to see what their take on this is.
Yeah, I agree. That'd be awesome. Any other updates from Lifetime Grand Prix stuff?
I think that's about it.
Okay.
Probably move on from gravel now.
Or we can talk about the demise of gravel.
Oh yeah, should we? Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so it was announced either over this weekend or maybe Thursday or Friday, sometime like end of last week, that the UCI Jingle GX gravel race, which was the replacement for the UCI Jingle Cross cyclocross weekend race, that Jingle GX race was canceled, and sounds like it was due to low participation in the first gravel race, and then an anticipated low participation rate in the second race. And just with economy and things going on right now, they just couldn't support a low participation race right now. So at least, in the for the U.S., the UCI gravel racing is over now because there were only two, and the second one's canceled. I don't think that doesn't bode well for the World Championships. I'm guessing probably not going to get hardly any U.S. riders over there now.
Yeah.
The first race had a really low finish rate, I guess, too, because it was super hot and the course was challenging. So
those average speeds were really slow. I mean,
yeah.
So
it's a bummer. I mean, it's it was a huge cyclocross race that got replaced with this gravel race, and I think there was a lot of initial hype around the kind of transfer of focus from cyclocross to gravel, and now they're not even being able to put on the race, so that's just a huge bummer for them. The race director John Meehan, no Jingle this year. It's a bummer.
Yeah. I gotta be honest, I'm not terribly surprised that the US gravel racers have not embraced UCI gravel racing. I mean, when UCI gravel racing was announced, it seemed like everybody was against it, at least in the US. Like people were like, get the UCI out of gravel racing. So it
was a huge motivation for a lot of people to participate in a lot of these unsanctioned, quote unquote unsanctioned gravel races, and even bigger unsanctioned gravel or mountain bike races. There was no governing body, there was no USAC, there was no UCI. They were just kind of standalone events.
Yeah. I don't. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the UCI gravel thing. I think that these UCI gravel races are a little bit more popular in other countries, and for whatever reason, they're just not taking off in the US, probably because the US already has such a thriving gravel scene. It's like the UCI wasn't really needed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Dylan, do you know, is gravel racing in other countries as popular as it is in the US? Or is the UCI coming out with a gravel series? Is that kind of a novel concept for some of these countries?
Yeah, I mean, I think that. So, I mean, I haven't. So I don't know because I don't live in these other countries. But I think that gravel racing is the most popular in the U.S. I think there are the most gravel races to choose from. I think the most people participate in gravel racing, and so it's not really surprising that we didn't need the UCI. And I don't know, maybe Europeans take UCI racing a little bit more seriously than US riders do, just in general. But yeah, I mean, I think it's the most popular in the US right now. That's not to say gravel racing isn't popular in other parts of the world. I just think there's more gravel races in the US than anywhere else. I could be wrong about that.
No, I mean, it makes sense. I also don't know what kind of terrain other countries have. Like the US has a lot of gravel roads. I don't know. Some countries in Europe might not have as many gravel terrain, accessibility areas or accessible areas. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have much else to add. I knew a handful of people. I was probably going to go down to the Jingle GX race because it was only 5 hours from my house. But I don't know. There's not too much else to add there other than UCI gravel in the US is kind of dead.
Well, I mean, it's only been 2 races, but yeah, I don't know. It'll
Well,
just
now
be
it's only been
interesting
one
to see
race.
what happens with that. Sure. Sure. All right. What do we have up next?
I think if the UCI wanted it to be bigger in the US, they would need to bring the World Championships to the US. That's my take.
Yeah, I mean, they were talking about having the World Championship race in the US, and then for whatever reason they didn't. So
Yeah.
yeah. Cool. Do we want to talk about the tour at all, or should we just move straight to listener questions? We're already at 50 minutes here, so.
Yeah, let's just do the listener questions.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, I gotta dig it out here.
Yeah, we could talk about the tour, but honestly, there's a lot of other podcasts that do it a lot better than us. So,
All right, this is kind of a long question. I'll just read the whole thing, and then all right, this guy Ben asks, how much do you think equipment choice does/should vary between amateurs and pros? Like in gravel, do aero bars make even less sense for amateurs based on performance loss when not using them? On the road, I've also heard the argument that endurance bikes are actually faster and more optimized for less aggressive non-pro riding, as the bike will fit better and generally be running more within its design window. Is there an equivalent in mountain bikes? Like running different tires?
All right. Yeah, I don't know, Scott. What do you think? Scott's just shaking his head.
I've never thought about it.
Right. This is not the kind of stuff that Scott thinks about, which is why I asked him. I mean, so if we're talking about aerodynamics, the faster you're going, the more aerodynamics matters, right? So if you are a pro, you're going faster than an amateur, so the more aerodynamics matters for you. So would aero bars or an aero frame or an aero helmet or aero socks or anything aero, would that matter more for a pro than an amateur? Yes, it would. As far as like, I don't know, mountain bikes and other equipment, I can't think of a reason off the top of my head why certain mountain bike equipment would matter more for a pro than an amateur, other than the fact that pro races tend to be won by small margins, right? So if you're trying to win a pro race, perhaps you should care about these margins more than an amateur. But
We're on a mountain bike, like a pro rider, a more skilled rider could handle maybe like a faster tire with less tread, and they can go the same speed on a trail. Whereas an amateur rider needs that extra grip in order to like make it down the trail.
sure.
Right.
Yeah, and you could
Something
even
like
say
that.
the same thing as far as like suspension setup. The pro is probably going to be able to get away with a little bit less suspension or different tuning than the amateur. That would be ideal for the amateur racer. Or things like dropper posts. It's still pretty split, like in UCI World Cup mountain bike racing, whether guys have dropper posts or not. It's definitely become a lot more popular, but I would say it's probably close to 50-50 guys with droppers versus high post. But
I would bet that in 5 years, it's almost 90. It's like 95% people have droppers.
I could see that.
Because if you look back 10 years ago, there were a lot of people running 26-inch wheeled hardtails, right? And now, with few exceptions, almost no one uses a hardtail, and people are certainly not using 26-inch wheels anymore. So,
right.
I think some of these trends are slow to catch on, partially because bike racers tend to be weight weenies, and anything that's going to add weight to their bike you know, that includes aerodynamics, that includes dropper posts, that includes bigger wheels. All of this stuff may make you faster, but it's making your bike heavier, right? So, you know, people are like, I don't know about that. I'd rather have my bike be a pound lighter, you know?
Yeah. But I would say just a general rule of thumb, and I don't know, sponsors and companies probably don't want this to be the kind of the case, but your everyday amateur probably should not replicate the bike setup that their pro idols are riding. So that goes for the road, that goes for the mountain bike, that goes for gravel. You know, their bikes, the pros' bikes are probably going to be more aggressive. They're also going to be out on the course for shorter duration. So, you know, if you're doing a 100-mile gravel race, the pro is going to be out there for 4.5 to 5 hours. The average amateur might be out there for 6.5 to 7 hours. So that's a lot more time to be spending in an aggressive position. As far as like the aero bar thing, I think for amateurs, it actually makes more sense, not from an aerodynamics perspective, but from a just comfort and ergonomics perspective. Like they're out there for, you know, at Unbound for 15 hours. Like sometimes you just need to lay down on your bike and pedal in a comfortable position. But as far as like for aerodynamics, I don't think it's going to be as, like you're talking about, Dylan, it's not going to be as effective as it is for you know, for the pros. You're probably also not going to spend as much time in the aero bars relative to, you know, the time that the pros spending in the aero bars. But at the same time, like he was talking about, I think I don't know when you talked about this, maybe it was on like your YouTube channel or something, or maybe during our aero bars episode, you were talking about how when you're not in the aero position, the aero bars on your bike are actually contributing to more air drag. But at slower speeds, it's also less of an effect. So, you know, it's, you know, so I don't know. I wouldn't be worried too much about that. I would set up your bike so that you feel, you know, the most comfortable and kind of strong throughout the race versus trying to set it up for aerodynamic advantage.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And also I would say this is definitely the case with these gravel races, but it could be the case with other races too. There's a difference in equipment setup when you are going for the win or versus just trying to finish, right? Like lighter tires, you know, carrying less water, trying to be more aerodynamic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, versus like just trying to finish, like, you know, saving 200 grams on your tires is probably not worth potentially getting a flat.
For sure.
So,
yeah, I think that's super relevant in mountain bike too. You know, a lot of times, like the cross country racers, even now, you're seeing a lot of them run like 2.35, 2.4 tires. But then you'll go to like the amateur field and you'll see a lot of guys still, and girls too, still running like 2.25, like smaller tires, thinking that those are faster. But 9 out of 10 times, if you just run a little bit bigger tire, lower tire pressure, getting better traction, less chance of flatting, like that's going to be, you know, better setup. All right, Scott, what's next?
That's like the only question we got.
You said there were 2 questions.
No. Did I say that?
I thought that's what you said yesterday.
No. I mean, this guy asked like a couple weeks ago. We should have talked about this last time, but I don't know. You were confused about this. Is like why people are competing in both amateur and pro nationals on the road.
Oh, yeah.
Makes it really confusing.
Yeah, it is a little bit confusing. So do you have an answer?
I don't know.
Scott, you're the one who needs to answer this.
Well, USA Cycling is charging $160 an entry fee. I think that's why they have both.
Sure. Yeah.
That's like the only good reason I could see.
Yeah.
Like, why don't they just have one race where, and if you're an amateur, the first amateur is crowned the national champion, right? Amateur national champion.
Right. So what, like, this is the thing with domestic level bike racing is like, where is the line between amateur and pro? It's not
There is a line.
What's the line?
If you're a part of a continental team, you're technically a pro.
Okay. Sure. The line.
Like,
So I guess the
But
line
there actually
exists.
is a line. Yeah.
Yeah, the line exists in road racing for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, even with that, though, like typically, like when you think of amateur versus pro, you think of like the pro, like this is their profession, this is their job, versus the amateur, this is just like maybe it's like their hobby or something like they have another full time occupation. But I don't know, like how many actual full time pros are there on the road where like that's their only job?
In the U.S.
Yeah, because even if you go to some of the the bigger crit races and stuff, it's not like it's only the pros who are competing for that money. Like the amateurs, if they win the race, they get the same payout that the pro would have, right?
Yeah.
They're just not getting paid to be there, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe. But then, like, there's probably guys on amateur teams who are getting paid.
That's
right.
Well, so I guess that's what I'm saying about the line is fuzzy. And then if you go to any other discipline, either mountain biking or cyclocross or gravel, then the line gets super fuzzy, right?
Yeah.
Like so do you think that there are more people making a living off of racing road bikes in the US right now, or are there more people making a living off of racing gravel in the US right now?
I have no idea because I don't know. I don't have these people's like bank statements or something, right? Like, do you see these articles with like I think there was one about Alexi, like, he's making 6 figures.
Mm-hmm.
But like, is he paying his expenses off that, right? Or is that his like take home pay? Like, are these sponsors just giving these gravel pros money and then they do all their own logistics, or is there an actual
that's usually, I mean, it depends on, I guess
staff,
I guess it depends on the sponsor, right? It just depends on how much the sponsor is providing, but a lot of these gravel racers are, quote, privateers, right? So they're kind of doing everything themselves. Like, they're their own mechanic, they're booking their own hotels, they're booking their own flights, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So like, Scott, like kind of what you're getting at is, like if you're on a elite amateur or pro Conti team, you're not paying for your flights, you're not paying for your food, you're not paying for your equipment. So like, even though you're not making 6 figures, you're also having 0 net expenses. So, it kind of offsets a little bit there.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah.
Versus so like, I mean, to go to one of these gravel races and do it at the highest level, it could cost anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 just for expenses.
Yeah, if you're paying staff and you
got staff, you got housing, you're there for a week, bringing all your equipment there, whether you're flying or driving, it's still going to be expensive. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's hard to say.
All right.
Still doesn't make sense why you would need to have pro and amateur elite nationals, though.
Well, I think Scott pretty well explained it. It's just like more money for USA Cycling.
Yeah.
Well, also like amateur nationals is like junior nationals, so all the junior races happen then, which makes sense. But
it's just like it's just weird to me that like Best Buddies goes and wins amateur nationals, but they're like clearly one of the best teams, if not the best team in the US.
Yeah, like, I don't know how much they get paid. I'm not going to take a guess on that, but like, they just have no reason to get the professional license. You could do, in the US, you can do one race with the professional license, which is the race that's coming up in Maryland on Labor Day weekend. It's a pro series race. That's the only race you could do in the US, like, that you couldn't do as an amateur team.
So in mountain bike racing, at like mountain bike nationals, which is coming up here, you're not going to see any anybody do both the like Cat 1 age group race and the pro race. I don't know if they can't. Like,
I don't think
you're
you
not.
can.
You
I
can't.
don't think you're allowed to do that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, but I guess it's similar to that, where the guy who wins the Cat 1, like, he always like blows it up on social media and gets like a custom jersey and shit, even though there's a whole field of people who would have beat him. Right?
Right. Yeah.
Like U23 is different. That's like an actual category.
Scott, how do you feel about the Cat 1, like, I don't know, 25 to 29 getting a jersey at Mountain Bike Nationals?
I mean, it's same thing with getting like in collegiate. Like, does that really count?
Well, but then you're the fastest. But then you're the fastest collegiate racer. You know what I mean? I guess what they're trying to say is, like, if you're the Cat 1 champion for your age group, then you're the fastest amateur in that age category, right?
You know, I was talking about this with somebody, and we were saying like they need to give you like some kind of inferior jersey, like what is it? I guess it's Phil Guyman, or like the Gran Fondo World Champion jersey. It's like not Phil Guyman's jersey. He's got like weird stripes on it because he like thinks he's some kind of world champion.
Yeah,
like, if you know cycling, you know that's like not legit.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to give you like a jersey that's like,
yeah,
chopped in half or something.
Well, they can't like butcher the American flag, though.
No, you can't. You got to be careful with that. But do something to it.
But do something.
Just put like amateur on it. Just says
amateur. Right. Okay.
Or yeah, age group. Yeah.
Like, Adam, you're like confused, and you like know cycling, right? So imagine somebody who's like doesn't know what's going on. They see a national champ jersey and they're like, "Oh, it's national champion." They're really not.
Mm-hmm. Well, they are the national champion for like the amateur, like
the amateurs,
25 to 29.
Yeah, should that count?
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to like, what is a pro? Because you could say you could argue like, oh, these amateurs, like, this is just something that they do like on the side for fun. But half the pro field at the mountain bike nationals is in the same boat. They just maybe take it a little more seriously, but I'd even argue that the amateurs sometimes take it more seriously than the pros do.
Yeah, but the guys in the pro field then they lose, and they deserve to lose because they're not taking it seriously and they're not good.
For sure,
right? But I think what Adam is saying is there's plenty of pros in the pro field who this is not how they make their living. They've got another job. Like maybe they get free bikes and maybe they get a little bit of payment from sponsors, and they win prize money here and there, but that is not how they're paying their bills.
Yeah, but why can't you just have a national championship? It doesn't have to be pro or it just.
So you're saying the national championship there shouldn't be any categories. It's just like mass start, and whoever crossed the finish line first is the national champion.
There could still be categories, but just don't like. People need to know that you won the inferior category. And again, with the entry fee thing at mountain bike, or at least at cyclocross nationals, I know they have all of the age groups, and then they have all the age groups but non-championship races.
Yeah, they have that at mountain bike too.
For money, so you could go to nationals and race like 3 or 4 races and like spend $500 on entry fees.
Mm-hmm. What about single speed? Should they get a jersey?
Yeah, I'm cool with single speed. I mean, that's fine. That's
actually like, I don't know.
Right. You're the fastest
separate,
person that rode the course with one gear.
Right.
I'm never gonna do that, I don't think.
Sure.
But
You would probably
Scott,
win it
dude,
if you did.
I could see you winning. Like, you should go to the mountain bike single speed world championships or the
Get the
cyclocross
tattoo.
single speed world championships. Then you could get a tattoo on your ass.
No, don't do it on your ass. Do it on your like forearm. Make sure people see that.
Yeah, or your neck.
Yeah, your forehead, dude.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
So, and I just wanted to clarify. Like, I think, like Scott, I think you were kind of saying this. I'm totally fine with there being subcategories. I just don't understand why like there's like the elite category for the amateurs and then there's the pro category for the amateurs. And like throughout the year, they're competing against one another, but then at nationals they separate them out. Like that just doesn't make sense to me. Like if you're competing at the same level all year, then for the national championship jersey where you're trying to crown the fastest person of like the fastest people, there should just be one combined category. That's the part I just don't understand.
Yeah, maybe there needs to be like a thing where like in the NCAA, at least it used to be, where you couldn't be paid. So like to do amateur nationals,
Yeah.
you can't be paid.
Right, and that's how it is in other sports.
Yeah.
Or at least some other sports. Like if you're an amateur and you go win, Crybaby Hill at Tulsa, you don't get the $10,000 payout. You there's some limit because you're an amateur. Like you've already accepted that you're not competing as your profession.
Yeah.
That's what I don't
know.
understand. Like you can go win Crybaby Hill, win 10 grand, but then you're not considered a professional still. So then you can go and win amateur nationals on the road, even though like you would have gotten beat by, I don't know, whoever won the pro road race. That's the part it doesn't make sense to me. The rest of it, like if you're a Cat 2 or Cat 3 and so on, like that's fine. Like you were the fastest in your category. Hopefully now you're going to cat up. But the elites who are competing against each other all year, they should not be separated out at nationals.
Another thing, one last thing is that at amateur nationals they don't have a women's Cat 1.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They do the amateur. At least they do U23 at pro nationals, and they just set like its first U23 in the pro race is the national champion. But no women's Cat 1.
That's crazy.
At the amateur nationals.
Wow. Okay. I feel like that needs to change.
No, It doesn't need to change. It needs to stay like that, and the men's needs to do that.
Okay. All right. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well,
yeah, I got nothing else.
All right,
is that it?
enough complaining for this week?
That was a lot of complaining. Cool. All right. Well,
Hey Dylan, so
send your questions to Scott McGill Jr.
Dylan, so you
What were you gonna say?
you
Adam?
you put a sneak peek. You got a new bike that came in. Did you not bring a mountain bike with you?
Yeah.
How did you ride in Grand Junction the other day?
No, I brought a mountain bike with me. So if you made it to this far into the podcast, then you get to know this information and nobody else does because they weren't patient enough to sit through the whole thing. Glad you brought this up, Adam. Okay, so the new bike that I just got that I gave a little sneak peek on Instagram is a mountain bike, and it's a hardtail that I plan on using for Leadville and Shawamigan. Did I pronounce that right?
Schwamigan.
I pronounced it so horribly in my YouTube video about how I was going to train for the series, and I got so many comments from people like telling me how to actually pronounce it. So I probably still pronounce it wrong, but I think those two races, a hardtail is probably better. I haven't actually ridden the course on either one of them, so I don't know, but no, I've got a full suspension with me. And now I just got a hardtail. So now I've got two mountain bikes with me. And I plan on building up the hardtail. And I mean, I've heard people say that a full suspension is actually better at Leadville because it's bumpy, but I'll be honest. Like asking people what equipment to run. I feel like half the time I get to the place, this is particularly bad with tires for gravel racing. Like I'll get to whatever race and I'll be like, yeah, what tires should I run? And somebody's like, oh, dude, like 38s, man, like 38 slicks. And then I get there and I'm like, dude, I wish I had a freaking like 42 with knobs. Like this is gnarly terrain. Or like somebody will be like, oh, dude, hardtail for that race is fine. And then I'm like, this is so bumpy right now. Like I wish I had a full suspension. I don't know. People's recommendation about what equipment to run, I kind of take it with a grain of salt at this point. So I've got both the full suspension and the hardtail. I'll check out the course and make a decision. Adam, I know you've ridden the course. What do you think?
Yeah, so I did it 5 years ago on a hardtail, but that was also like one of my first mountain bike races. And I only owned a hardtail. I'd never even ridden a full suspension bike. So I'm kind of using that experience with a grain of salt. Last year, I rode 40 miles of the course, which is equivalent to 80 miles of the course because it's an out and back. I did 40 miles of the course on my gravel bike. And the whole time I was like, wow, you could totally do this course on a gravel bike, except for I didn't do Columbine, which is like the hardest climb and the hardest descent.
Sure.
So like other than that, like, and I rode all the power line climb. I didn't do the power line descent. So like maybe that'd be a little bit different too. But, you know, like the gravel bike was it was, you know, super smooth roads. I mean, there was a little bit of chunk on some of the climbs, and some of the descents. I still don't think a gravel bike would be faster, but you could do it on a gravel bike. So I'm going to run a hardtail this year. To me, it's like kind of the in-between bike. It's for like my hardtail is 2 pounds lighter, which is like not insignificant. Like that's 10%. So like, I don't know. It's 10% of my bike weight. So like, I don't know. I'm just going to run the hardtail and hope for the best and see what happens. Keegan won it on a hardtail last year, but Howard won it on full suspension bike the previous 3 years. So it's hard to like look at the winners and be like, what are the winners riding? I would imagine Howard probably had access to a hardtail if he really wanted a super light hardtail. For whatever reason, he was on a full suspension bike. But yeah, I think 95% of the course, the hardtail is probably the right bike.
So you know what I thought about doing is taking this hardtail and putting drop bars on it, like the same bars that I use. It's the same bars that I use for gravel racing, right? So it would kind of be a hybrid between a gravel bike and a mountain bike. I mean, basically all the other components are the same as when I'm on a mountain bike, except that I have like gravel drop bars.
People have done that.
So do you think that would be faster or no?
Yeah, I think you could get away with it. I think it would depend on what you're trying to achieve. I'm guessing maybe you'd have a couple different hand positions and be able to get a little more aero with the gravel bars. Yeah. So like in that case, yeah, I think it would be faster for most of it. I really don't think. I mean, you're a good enough bike handler. Like I don't think descending on drop bars is going to be a problem for you.
I definitely descend faster if I have mountain bike handlebars. I will say that.
Yeah, for sure. But I don't think you would get dropped on the descent because you have drop bars, is what I'm saying.
I gotcha.
The biggest thing that I would say is I think drop bar brakes suck compared to like mountain bike brakes. So that would probably be the biggest thing is like, I think at the bottom of Columbine where you're descending for 20 minutes and you're on the brakes a ton because there's a lot of chunder and two-way traffic and tight corners or, steep corners and stuff. Your hands might be kind of fried from like really grabbing on the brakes. But otherwise I don't think the drop bars would be a bad idea other than they would just look kind of dumb.
Yeah, well, I don't really care about that.
Yeah. Would you run aero bars too, then?
By this whole conversation.
Would you put aero bars on those too?
Well,
yeah, okay.
Oh, on the drop bar? Well, I'm for sure going to run aero bars on the mountain bike if I have regular mountain bike handlebars. I've got like these little mini aero bars made by Control Tech, which are pretty lightweight because normal aero bars actually add quite a bit of weight to your bike. And there's a lot of climbing at Leadville, so I think I'm going to go with the mini aero bars. But
dude, how did you like drive a U-Haul out there? Or how do you have so much stuff with you?
what do you mean? Just have my minivan.
You've got like between you and Nina, you've got like 4 or 5 bikes, and you got different aero bars and
we have 5 bikes
wheels.
now. Yeah, we have 5 bikes now. I did bring a lot of components with me too. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. We have a bike rack and we put bikes in the actual van itself too. Minivans have a lot of space. I mean, I know a minivan is like the least cool vehicle that you could drive, but it's probably one of the most practical.
Yeah. I'm trying to sell I've got a Toyota 4Runner. I'm trying to sell that and replace it with something more like fuel efficient. And a minivan is kind of tempting because they make some minivans that get like 35 miles a gallon right now.
Yeah. Not my minivan, but.
And I'm a dad, so like it's kind of fitting, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. Cool. Well, I don't know. We've strayed off the topic of bike racing again, so I think we could probably wrap it up.
Yeah, it's been at least like 6 minutes since we talked about gravel, so I think the show's probably over.
Yeah, stop it now before we get back on the gravel.
Yeah.
Please.
All right, guys. Well, we'll catch you next week unless something else comes up in the meantime.
Yeah. See you guys later.
See ya.